So, we're going to be talking about the musical motifs of Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been by Joyce Carol Oates. The group's name is on the car, and the song in the background is actually Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan, which is one of the songs we're going to be talking about. So, the easiest way to look at the musical references is to look at it as an indication of danger. The music is first brought up when Connie's at a diner, and this is the place that she meets Arnold Friend. And Oates puts in the piece that the music was always in the background, like music at a church service. She's putting this in there because the diner is more than just a diner. It's a place of teenage worship, essentially. A place to get away from everything. And for Connie to be such a young girl there by herself, it is dangerous. But what makes it even more dangerous is this is where she meets Arnold Friend. And then any other time he comes up in the piece, it has a musical undertone. When he comes to her house and her family's at the barbecue, it says that Ellie had a radio and that he was so dependent on it that it was almost purposeless. Like his life was purposeless without this radio. And I believe that's on line 82. And Arnold's voice is also compared to music, but with more negative connotations. And just the way music is used, you can see all of this danger coming up when music is played. Another way you can look at the music in this piece, is actually as a soundtrack of Connie's life and how her life is going. It starts out happy, and she hears it at the diner where she's a young woman who's free, and she hears it when she's thinking about boys, and that's a coming of age for a young girl, is thinking about boys and being interested in them. And the fact that she's hearing this while she's thinking about boys just reiterates that it's, again, a positive connotation. But then it changes a little bit, because when Arnold shows up, she begins to talk about his voice as like a lull or radio that's just rehearsed and kind of ingrained but uncomfortable. And so it turns it into, like, you can see it follow the story, how it starts positive and then gets more negative as she approaches her death, leaving with Arnold. It's All Over Now, Baby Blue is a song written by Bob Dylan, and the background on Bob Dylan and the fact that Oates dedicated this to him was very important. He's extremely politically charged, and he was very popular at this time, which, again, just plays to Connie's superficiality about how much she depended on this music. And It's All Over Now, Baby Blue is a song about spiritual death. It's about a woman who was betrayed by a lover, and she's hurt, and she's emotionally distraught, and you can see that in the story it reflects it, because Connie dies, her innocence dies, she turns into a woman at the very end when she leaves with Arnold, and that's killing the inner child in her. Oates is also making a political statement of the coming of age as dying because of the women and the suppression of women back in the 60s. The women were also hurt over lovers, and they were so much more idealized as like these feminine creatures who were weak. And Connie, her entire persona was completely fake and superficial. And the fact that Oates picked Bob Dylan, who completely crushed this with the song, was just phenomenal. And then Mr. Tambourine Man is very important. And in verse 2, it makes a very special nod towards Arnold Friend. When it says, magic swirling ship, this is a reflection of his gold jalopy, which is a contradiction, and it's an allure to Connie. It's a piece of, like, flair. It's almost Arnold Friend's peacock. It's his way of, like, catching her, but it's a contradiction. It's a jalopy is something old and broken. It's like a lemon. But a gold jalopy, it's like this broken thing, just full of promises. And then in verse 2 of Mr. Tambourine Man, it also says, my senses have been stripped. And this is just a reflection of Connie and her ignorance and how she's essentially asleep. She's completely not in tune with the real world at all. And then Like a Rolling Stone, which again is the song playing in the background. It might be over soon. In verse 2, it says, nobody's ever taught you how to live out on the street, and now you're going to have to get used to it. And that's talking about Connie's coming of age. And then in verse 3, it says, on the jugglers and the clowns, when they all did tricks for you, you never understood that it ain't no good. And this is talking about Arnold's friend, like, persona that he put on for Connie. This, like, fake man that's trying to, like, seduce this young girl and, like, trick her into being his. And then in verse 3, it also says, he wasn't where it's at after he took from you everything he could steal. And that's going even further into saying that he is taking everything from her and he is stripping her of her innocence, and Connie can't do anything to get it back because Arnold Friend has taken this from her. And then in verse 4, it says, go to him, he calls you. You can't refuse. When you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. You're invisible now. You've got no secrets to conceal. This is explicitly talking about Connie's death. This is saying that she's lost everything at the very end of this. She's lost her innocence, her childhood, her freedom. She's lost her life, and she's lost her actual life too. And it's amazing that Oates made these connections to Bob Dylan's music. So the song lyrics and the general music motifs in the story, again, just to kind of sum everything up, the songs help manifest Connie's superficiality and, like, what women were at the time and how they're almost feeble, and girls have this, like, intrepidness to them, and that kind of helps characterize Connie and how her life is turning out. The music helps reflect her journey through the voice and journey through the story, and the tone of the music and Arnold's voice changing, like the tone of the music changing and the tone of his voice changing, kind of helps lead you through the story. And then the coming of age and rebirth through the religious musical motifs, because she treats music as something to worship. It's spiritual for her. Again, she's a teenager. She's so superficial that anything popular is what she clings to. And so this coming of age is a rebirth for her, but it's also her death. And then our themes for this are love causes problems, a child led astray, and coming of age. And the love causes problems is the infatuation Connie has. It's this intrepidness that she gets once she figures out that boys are a coming of age piece. They're something that she wants. Child led astray is her family's gone, and they're not gone, but they're emotionally gone because she's growing up, and she's so attached to music that she just doesn't know how to connect anymore. And again, this coming of age is really seen in her death and how she finally goes into the field with Arnold after following all of this music. You're coming to the end of a song when you're coming of age with Connie in this story. And that's it, pretty much.